Well, good morning. Today, Psalm 121. Where does my help come from? I couldn't skip over this psalm. It's so well known. I'm not sure if I'm going to get to Psalm 150, the end of the Psalms, but we shall see. Anyway, so Psalm 121. Let's just read it first and hear it so that you can recognize first what this psalm is. Starting at verse 1. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. This psalm is part of a group of psalms called the Psalms of Ascent, of going up, right? So that's from 120 all the way to 134. Those 14 psalms are the Psalms of Ascent. They are all short. They're all, of course, meant to be sung and to be known by heart. And the Israelites would often take, as they were taking their yearly journey to Jerusalem to offer their yearly sacrifice and worship the Lord in Jerusalem, as they were making this trip, that's when they would often repeat these psalms. Often as they were walking along, as they were taking the trip, they would sing the Psalms of Ascent. So anyone who has ever been to Israel knows that although the Dead Sea is one of the lowest places on earth, right, measuring from sea level, I think it's something like 1,500 feet below sea level. Jerusalem, and especially the Mount of Olives, is about 4,000 feet up from there. So it's a huge climb. I remember when my wife and I were in Israel, I mean, we had a rental car, we did we did the trip in the car, but you can feel like after a while, just up and up and up and up and up. So you can imagine doing this journey on foot. It is certainly a journey that goes up, and so you can see this imagery in the psalm, about not allowing your foot to slip. The trip probably took a few days, and so they had to sleep on the way, and so in the psalm you have the illusion that he who watches over you never sleeps or slumbers. Then, of course, if you've been in Israel, you understand that it's hot, and doing that kind of trip can also, just be very exhausting because of the sun, because of the heat, and so in the psalm you have the Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night, right? And so all of these illusions of this trip up to Jerusalem to worship the Lord. And after a few days in Jerusalem, of course, the family or the group of families would have to go back home again. And here you have in the psalm, the Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. So there you go, a perfect illustration of one of the Psalms of Ascent. So why does the psalmist here say, I lift up my eyes to the mountains? Where does my help come from? I'm going to give you two of the most common explanations of that. The first is just simply looking up to Jerusalem and the Temple Mount from where they were, which had to be lower than that, right? And so looking up to Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, the one place where Jews were allowed to worship God, looking up there and recognizing this is where my help comes from, looking to the mountains, right? And a second explanation is maybe because many times at that time, Asherah poles and other idols were built on top of hills and mountains. And even in Israel, unfortunately, worshippers of God would then look to these hills and these mountains and seeing these Asherah poles and other idols that were built there, reminding themselves, being worshippers of God, that their help doesn't come from that, but from the God of creation. The psalm brings up a few questions for our thought this morning. First, what effort do we put into worshiping the Lord? What effort do we put into getting to a place where we can worship the Lord even today? Secondly, what's our go-to when we need help? We're so rich in this country, and we have so many helpers, so to speak, right, that we can call on. Including doctors and medicine and operations and machines and cars and just plain throwing money at things to solve a problem. We have so many ways to get help in this country. But what is our go-to? The Lord forbid that we should lose those things that we call on for help. I mean, we thank God for the country that we live in and the fact that we are rich in this country. But remember that God should not be the last person to call on when life starts to lean uphill. When we start having to work a little harder and work up a little sweat, and when it's actually hard to worship the Lord, to get to that place where we need to worship. He should always be the first place that we go. Where does my help come from? It comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Where does your help come from this morning? A great question to start your morning with. May the Lord bless you today.